I am Eliza Merrin, a 31 years old woman. I'm an estate accountant in Clearwater, Florida, and 6 months ago, I found out my sister had secretly drained our late mother's trust fund. What happened next turned our entire family inside out. But when her husband ended up in my office, desperate for work, that was just the beginning. The last time I logged into Mom's trust account, she was still alive. I remember the password. I remember the moment she dictated it to me from her hospital bed, mumbling through the morphine, her fingers trembling as she tapped the numbers into the air. Back then I thought I had time. It had been 8 months since I touched the account. 8 months since Mom passed. 8 months of avoidance, wine-fueled grief, and annoying guilt I tried to bury under work, late nights, and perfectly color-coded spreadsheets. Sam had volunteered to handle it. "You deal with death and numbers for a living, Lizzie," she said after the funeral, her voice soft and rehearsed. "Let me take the emotional stuff this time." And I believed her. I really did. Until last Tuesday night, when I opened the trust portal and the number at the top of the screen nearly stopped my heart. $28,946.12. I blinked, refreshed again. It should have been over $510,000. I froze, my coffee went cold beside me. The cursor pulsed on the screen like it was taunting me. I opened the transaction history. Transfer, consulting fee, care expenses, Sam's office, IVF. My chest tightened, I could barely breathe. I scrolled through pages of withdrawals, each more casual than the last. It wasn't just the money, it was the pattern, the method, the way she did it bit by bit, as if she was counting on me not to notice. Or not to look. She was right. I should have looked. I'm an accountant, for God's sake. But I'd let my sister grieve in peace. I'd let myself drown in work and shame and silence. I spent that entire night pulling bank statements, cross-referencing account numbers, digging through my own email archives. The worst part wasn't what I found. It was that I knew exactly how she'd done it. She had access, she had the power of attorney, she had my trust. And she used all three. At 3:12 a.m., I finally called the bank. "Hi, yes, I'm Eliza Merrin. I'm the co-beneficiary on trust account number ending in 847. I need a complete access log of every transaction from January 1st through today." The woman on the other end was chipper. "Sure, I can get that for you." I waited. She hummed as she typed, and then, "All primary withdrawals and authorizations were conducted under the secondary login, Samantha Merrin." I nearly dropped the phone. "Did those require a co-signature?" I asked. According to the profile, no. She had independent authority based on her healthcare proxy and power of attorney. That level of access was granted on, one moment, she paused, May 12th, 2023. 2 weeks before Mom passed. That night I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I emailed my supervisor and took the next day off. Then I drove to Sam's house. When she opened the door, she looked glowing, pregnant, radiant, wearing a soft blush robe that probably cost more than my rent. "Eliza," she smiled, hand on her belly. "I was gonna call you later, you won't believe." "We need to talk," I said, stepping past her. Inside, the house was something out of a catalog. Custom wood floors, built-ins, a Pottery Barn nursery. A brand new SUV sat in the driveway. It was like she'd taken our childhood memories and painted over them in rich, glossy lies. She didn't deny anything. Not when I confronted her with the statements, not when I showed her the access logs, not when I said the words, "You stole from Mom's estate." She just sighed. "I thought you'd understand," she said. "Understand?" As if betrayal was a reasonable request. "You don't get to decide that," I snapped. "That money wasn't yours." "It wasn't yours either," she snapped back. "It was just sitting there untouched while I was losing my mind trying to make a family." I shook my head. "So you thought the answer was to steal it?" "I thought I could put it back," she whispered. "Eventually, I didn't think you'd notice." That cut deeper than the lie itself. That she counted on my grief, my distance. That she thought I wouldn't notice. I left her house without another word. That same night, I submitted the formal motion to freeze the trust. I flagged every suspicious transaction. And then I activated something I hadn't told anyone about, something I'd built quietly for years, a private side firm focused on post-mortem financial mismanagement. This time the case wasn't for a stranger. It was for Mom. For me. What I didn't know yet was that this wasn't the last betrayal. Because 4 weeks later, Samantha's husband walked into my office. Resume in hand. Eyes lowered. And I became his boss. When her husband walked in, I don't remember what I was working on when the elevator chimed. Just that it was raining outside, the kind of steady gray drizzle that turns glass into ghosts, and I was behind on reconciling a trust for a late client's 3 children, none of whom had even shown up at the funeral. My screen glowed with spreadsheets, numbers, quiet order. The world made sense inside my columns. Then I heard the receptionist say, "He's here for the admin support position. Go ahead and send him down to Eliza." Footsteps, a pause, and then, "Hi." His voice was soft, familiar. I looked up. Trevor, my brother-in-law, standing in the doorway wearing the same navy blazer he'd worn to Mom's funeral, slightly wrinkled, thin in the shoulders, eyes bloodshot but trying not to show it. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. I stood slowly. "Trevor," I said, my voice colder than I meant it to be, "what are you doing here?" He looked like he wanted to disappear. I didn't know you worked here, I swear." My jaw clenched. This was too absurd, too perfect. "You're applying for a job here." He nodded. "I got laid off from the firm, downsizing, and with everything with Sam and the baby, I just needed to find something, anything." I should have said no. I should have told HR it was a conflict, that it was a nightmare waiting to happen. But I didn't. Because part of me, ashamed as I am to admit it, wanted him close. Not out of spite, out of need. I needed to understand. What he knew, what he didn't. What Sam had told him. "Talk to HR," I said quietly. "If they assign you here, I won't object." He blinked like he didn't expect that. "Okay," he said, "thank you." When he left my office, I sank into my chair and stared at the corner where he'd stood, trying to convince myself I was still in control. That night, I poured a double glass of wine and emailed Renee Castillo, my attorney. She replied in 20 minutes. "If he's working under you, use it. Just don't play your hand too early." And so I didn't. Trevor started the following Monday. His desk was 5 feet from mine. He greeted me like a stranger every morning. No jokes, no smiles, just quiet, competent work. I'd give him tasks, audits, reconciliations, red flag reviews. He handled them all. One day, I gave him a box of archival files from Mom's estate. No explanation, no context. He said nothing. But when he returned it 2 days later, he'd sorted every transaction by date, category, and suspect origin. A little yellow post-it was stuck to the cover. Page 37, the invoice labeled Consulting Recovery. Check the routing number. I did. It was routed to a shell corporation. The shell corporation was tied to Sam's friend, the one who used to do branding consulting on the side. I sat at my desk, hands trembling. He knew. He knew. That evening, as the office emptied out and the rain returned, I stepped into the stairwell where Trevor was taking his usual after-hours call. He turned mid-sentence, saw me, ended the call. "Eliza," he said cautiously. I crossed my arms. "Why are you helping me?" He leaned against the wall, tired, beaten down. "Because I should have asked more questions months ago," he said. "Because I watched Sam become someone I didn't recognize and I stayed silent. And because I owe your mother more than that." His voice cracked. "She treated me like a son, and I let her legacy turn into this circus." I watched him for a moment. "You didn't steal the money." "No," he said, "but I spent it, every nursery piece, every fertility consult. I told myself it wasn't my business, that Sam knew what she was doing, but I knew something was off." I swallowed hard. "And now you're here." "Now I'm here," he echoed. "Working for the sister I once watched cry alone at her mother's funeral while we celebrated IVF success with champagne." The guilt in his eyes was real, raw. I didn't say anything else. I just nodded. Later that week, he handed me another envelope. Someone dropped this in the mail bin. It's addressed to you, no return address. Inside was a USB drive, taped to a folded sheet of floral paper. My mother's stationery. But the note wasn't from Mom. It was from Sam. I know you're angry, but before you destroy me, watch this. You owe me that much. That night I stayed in the office alone, lights dimmed, door locked. And I plugged the USB into my computer. What I saw changed everything. A hospital video, a doctor, an embryo transfer. Sam pale, terrified, and holding Trevor's hand. Then a flash of an email. An attachment. A scanned signature. My mother's name. Only it wasn't real. It was a forgery. I slammed my laptop shut, my breath came in ragged gasps. Sam hadn't just withdrawn the funds. She had falsified documents. That was criminal. That was personal. That was war. The nursery wasn't the only thing she built. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a wink. I lay in bed, clutching my phone like it might ring and wake me from a nightmare that hadn't ended. My body was still in that office chair. My mind frozen in the frame of the forged signature, Mom's name, warped and copied from an old lease agreement, pasted onto an email she never saw, never signed. Sam had crossed a line. Not a moral line, not a personal one. A legal one. It changed everything. And the worst part, she knew exactly what she was doing. I showed the video and the screenshots to Renaa first thing in the morning. Her face didn't flinch. She forged a binding document to gain early access to a restricted account, she said flatly. That's felony fraud. If you press charges, she's looking at prison time, possibly restitution. But it's my sister, I said, voice hollow. She stopped being just your sister when she faked your dead mother's signature, Renaa replied. This isn't a family dispute, this is criminal. I stared at the screen again, Sam lying in the procedure chair, Trevor next to her, the doctor saying she'd declined psychological clearance. She hadn't just stolen money. She bypassed everything. Clinic ethics, mental health evaluations, legal protections. Also, she could have that baby. I asked Renaa for time. She gave me 48 hours. After that, she said, I'm filing a report whether you want to be named or not. I drove straight to Sam's. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't give her the chance to rehearse another half-truth. She opened the door in slippers, holding a burp cloth, her belly large and taut beneath a stretched gray t-shirt. Lizzie, she said carefully, what's going on? I saw the video, I said. Her face didn't even flicker. You forged Mom's signature. A pause, a breath, a drop of her eyes. I didn't know what else to do, she said softly. You had options, I snapped. You had me. She shook her head. I didn't want to ask. I knew you'd say no. Because it was illegal, Sam. I didn't care, she whispered. I needed to become a mom. I needed to win at something. She stepped aside and gestured to the nursery. Please, she said, come see her room. I stepped inside. My feet carried me before my heart caught up. The nursery was like something from a magazine. Sage green walls, wicker baskets labeled in calligraphy, framed ultrasound photos in brushed gold frames. In the crib, a single knitted blanket, white and lavender. And beside the crib, a binder. Look, she said, almost in a trance. I've documented everything, her medical records, immunization schedules, feeding charts. I've even pre-registered her for early language classes. I stood still, like a marble statue cracking from the inside. You built a whole world, I said quietly, but you built it on stolen bones. I know, she said, voice trembling, that's why I called you. She picked up a folded sheet from the changing table and handed it to me. It was a letter. From Mom. Not a forgery, a real one. Eliza. If you're reading this, Sam has probably done something impulsive, maybe even unforgivable. I told her I wouldn't authorize the trust, but I didn't stop her either. I'm tired, and I want to believe she'll find her way. Please forgive me, forgive her if you can, but protect yourself. Love. Mom. I sat down slowly on the glider chair, clutching the note in my lap. Sam crouched in front of me, her eyes red, her breath unsteady. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. But when I saw the heartbeat on the monitor, I knew I couldn't turn back. You still lied, I whispered, and now you're asking me to pretend it doesn't matter. She shook her head. I'm asking you to see that it does. It has to. That baby in there, she's more than a mistake. She's ours. I flinched. What did you just say? Sam's eyes welled with tears. She reached again for the binder, opened it, slid out a laminated donor profile. And there it was. My name. From 6 years ago, from a time when I was broke and donating eggs to pay for grad school textbooks. You used my egg, I said, barely breathing. Sam nodded. I remembered you listed me as a match in the system. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to say no. I stood up slowly, knees shaking. That baby isn't just yours, I whispered. She's mine too. The world spun. I backed away out of the nursery, through the hallway, down the stairs, past the photo frames of our childhood, past Mom's old piano, past the lie that had become this house. Sam followed. Eliza, she called, frantic, please don't take her from me. I turned at the door, my eyes were dry, my voice calm. I'm not going to take her. But you'll fight me, she said. I shook my head. No, I said, but I will protect her from this, from you, from everything you refuse to own. I'm not disappearing, Sam, not again. And I walked out. Straight to my car. Straight to Rena's office. And I filed the paperwork. Declaratory maternity. Biological verification. Guardianship rights. Not to punish Sam, but to make sure that baby would never have to inherit the same cycle of silence and betrayal we were raised in. I hired a family law attorney, but not for what you think. Rena didn't ask a single unnecessary question. She took one look at the donor records, the clinic email confirming my biological contribution, and the handwritten note from Sam admitting everything, and she simply said, "We have a case." I sat across from her in her glass-walled office, the soft buzz of the espresso machine in the background and her paralegal quietly typing notes in the hallway. It was surreal, talking about my own family like they were just another client file. But that was the only way I could hold myself together. "Do you want full custody?" she asked. I looked at my hands. They were clenched too tight, leaving half-moons in my palms. No, I don't want to take the baby away from her. I just want protection, recognition. Rena's eyes softened. So you want declaratory maternity, legal acknowledgement of biological parenthood, shared custody optional. Exactly, I said. I want to be more than her aunt. I want to be her legal mother because I am. And if Sam objects? I exhaled, then I fight. The legal process was faster than I expected, because of the documentation Sam herself had provided. Her handwritten confession, the clinic's cooperation, and the trust fund records all helped build a case that was difficult, nearly impossible, to argue against. But even though I had all the pieces, I still didn't feel victorious. This wasn't a win. This was a wound I had to sew closed with statute and signatures. Meanwhile, at work, Trevor had grown quieter. He moved with robotic precision, like someone trying not to make waves in a sea he didn't want to be drowning in. Then one Friday afternoon, he slipped a folder onto my desk. No eye contact, no words, just a stiff nod. Inside was a spreadsheet I hadn't asked for. An audit he'd conducted on his own, analyzing discrepancies in Sam's consulting invoices and purchase logs over the past 10 months. In the margins, he'd flagged the invoices tied to fertility medications purchased before Sam even told me she was considering IVF. She'd been planning it long before Mom passed, and she'd been moving money even earlier. The realization made me dizzy. When I looked up, Trevor was gone. That evening, I found him in the break room, alone, pouring stale coffee and staring at the wall. "She lied to you too," I said gently. He nodded, eyes red. "I thought she just needed help. I thought the baby would fix everything." "It didn't." "No," he said, "it broke everything wider." There was a long silence before I asked, "Do you still love her?" He didn't answer, not really, just said, "I don't know who she is anymore, but I still want to protect that child." We weren't enemies, that much was clear. Trevor had been as manipulated as I had, only difference was I fought back. The next morning my phone buzzed. an alert from the family law portal. Declaratory maternity petition approved pending final review, temporary guardianship active. I stared at the screen, not in triumph, not in satisfaction. In grief. Because this wasn't how I imagined becoming a mother. But it was real. And it was mine. When I told Sam, she didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just stared at me across the cafe table, her hands curled around a mug of chamomile tea like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I deserve this, she said quietly, but I also love her, Eliza. I wake up every day terrified that she'll grow up hating me. She won't, I said. If we do this right, she won't have to hate anyone. I don't know how to do that, she admitted. I do, I said, but we have to do it together. And that was the beginning of the real negotiation, not in court but in heart. We drafted a co-parenting agreement. Shared legal custody, physical custody rotation pending stability assessments, clear financial boundaries, everything backed by law and signed by both of us. Renat called it the cleanest mess she'd ever seen. But then came the twist no one expected. 2 days after the ink dried, Trevor walked into my office, placed a folded piece of paper on my desk, and said, "I'm resigning." Why? He met my eyes for the first time in weeks. Because I can't be near this and still be neutral. I love that child, but I can't work for the woman who uncovered everything, and I can't go home to the one who caused it. I stood up slowly. Trevor. He raised a hand. No hard feelings, honestly, you did what had to be done, I respect you for it. Then he added, almost under his breath, "Take care of her." And he left. Just like that. No more office banter, no more spreadsheets, no more quiet truths in stairwells. Gone. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt hollow. Because in this mess, Trevor had become something else. A reminder that even the people who try their best can still break in the middle. Later that night, I sat by the crib I'd built with my own hands, the one I'd assembled in my guest room after Renat filed the temporary guardianship. The baby slept peacefully, fingers curled like tiny question marks. And I whispered to her, "You don't know it yet, but you changed everything, not just because you were born, but because you survived being born into our chaos. I promise I'll make it better for you." But even as I whispered that promise, I had no idea what was coming next. Because the very next knock on Sam's door would shatter everything again. And this time it would come with a badge. When CPS showed up at her door, she blamed me. It started with a knock. 3 short taps, calm, official. Sam called me 30 seconds after it happened. "Eliza," she whispered, voice fraying at the edges. "They're here, Child Protective Services. They said someone filed a report." My stomach dropped. I stood in the middle of the cereal aisle at Publix, frozen, a box of oatmeal still in my hands. "What kind of reports?" "That I used fraudulent funds to create unsafe conditions, that I'm unstable, that I forged documents." She paused. "Then did you?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "Sam, I didn't, I swear." The silence on the other end said she didn't believe me, or maybe she did and just couldn't accept that someone else knew. I rushed to her house, taking the back roads like instinct. I didn't even remember driving, just the sound of my heartbeat crashing against my ribs and the rattle of my keys in the ignition. By the time I got there, a woman in a gray blazer stood on the porch, clipboard in hand, while Sam rocked the baby on the front step, looking like she was one blink away from collapse. "Eliza Merrin," the caseworker asked. "Yes, I'm the declaratory co-guardian. What's going on here?" She didn't flinch, just nodded toward her paperwork. "We received an anonymous report of financial fraud, document forgery, and potential postpartum mental health concerns affecting infant safety. We're required to conduct a home visit and report." Sam stared at me like I'd conjured the entire scene. "I didn't do this," I said again, low, steady, "but I can help you fix it." The caseworker asked to inspect the nursery, the kitchen, and the sleeping arrangements. Sam complied, too numb to argue. Everything was fine, immaculate, even. She'd been preparing for this kind of scrutiny without even realizing it. But that didn't mean it was over. The caseworker left with a soft warning. You'll be notified of a follow-up interview and will be contacting the co-guardian as well. Thank you for cooperating." When she drove off, Sam turned to me trembling. "Who else even knows?" My heart sank. Only one person had enough information to file that report. Trevor. He had seen everything, read every folder, analyzed every forged invoice. He'd resigned 2 days before, disappeared. Now I knew why. "He would," Sam whispered. "He might," I said, "not to hurt you but to protect her." Sam walked inside like a storm survivor. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just sat down in the nursery rocking back and forth in silence. "I'm going to lose her," she said. "You're going to take her from me." "I'm not," I said, "but Sam, this is happening, and if you don't let me help, they will." That night I called Renee and told her everything. She stayed silent for a long time. Then, "This changes the strategy. We need to protect Sam while still keeping the baby safe. I can draft a formal joint affidavit, voluntary oversight. It'll show good faith." I met with Sam the next morning and presented it to her. She stared at the document like it was a death sentence. "It's not surrender," I said. "It's a shield. You sign this, we co-parent under court review. We show them we're stable, united, you keep her." Sam signed with shaking hands. The affidavit was submitted that afternoon. 3 days later, CPS responded, 6-month supervisory period, unannounced visits, bi-weekly wellness checks. It could have been worse, much worse. But something in Sam shifted after that visit. She stopped eating. She double-locked every door. She stopped responding to texts. She even stopped singing to the baby, something she used to do constantly, even off-key, even when she was exhausted. Then one night I arrived unannounced. I brought soup, formula, and a plush elephant I'd seen on sale. When I knocked, she didn't answer. I called, texted. Finally, I used the spare key. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The bassinet was empty. The dishes were washed. The framed ultrasound on the dresser was gone. And on the table, next to a folded onesie, a note. Just my name written in thick black ink. Eliza. The baby in the nursery was mine, too. I stared at the envelope with my name on it for at least a full minute. My fingers wouldn't move. My body felt disconnected from my breath, light, unstable, barely present. And then finally I picked it up. Her handwriting was rushed, slanted like she'd written it standing up. "Eliza. I'm not running, I swear I'm not. I just can't do it anymore, not like this. Not under microscopes and judgments and this constant fear that every breath I take will be the wrong one. You love her, I know you do. That's why I trust you more than I trust myself right now. Please don't think this is goodbye. I just need space to figure out how to be someone she can depend on. I'll come back. Please tell her I love her, always. Sam." My knees buckled and I sank to the floor of her living room. The lamp near the bassinet glowed dimly. Outside, the world went on like nothing had shifted. Cars passed. A neighbor's dog barked. Somewhere in the distance, wind chimes clinked. But my sister had left. And she had left me with a baby who didn't even have a name on a birth certificate yet. The panic came slow, like waves rising 1 inch at a time. I called Trevor. It rang once, twice, then voicemail. I texted, "Where is she? She left. The baby's here, please." An hour passed. Then finally my phone buzzed, a reply. "Check your front step." I raced home. The baby carrier was there, right where he said it would be. The baby, our baby, was swaddled and sleeping, lips parted, one tiny hand gripping the edge of the blanket. My eyes blurred. I sank to my knees and whispered, "Hi, baby girl, it's me. I've got you now." Inside, I cradled her against my chest and walked into the nursery I'd only halfway built. It still smelled like new wood and lemon oil. The crib wasn't even assembled. The dresser was empty. I laid her down on the couch cushion, padded with blankets, and called Renee. She left, I said. Sam gone. Renee didn't sound surprised. Is the baby safe? Yes. You have temporary guardianship? That gives you legal ground, but we'll need to file for emergency custody if Sam doesn't return in 72 hours. Are you prepared for that? I looked at the baby. The answer was easy. Yes. Trevor finally called back later that night. She came to my apartment, he said. Tears, panic, no shoes. She said she needed to be away from everyone, especially herself. And you just let her go. I begged her to stay, she wouldn't. Where is she? I asked. He paused. I think she's going somewhere quiet, somewhere Mom used to take us. Remember that retreat near Ocala? I remembered. It was the only place Mom ever truly rested. And if Sam was going anywhere to fall apart safely, it would be there. The next morning, I filed for temporary full custody. The court granted it within hours. Trevor signed the affidavit. Renee expedited the process with a judge she'd worked with for years. By the end of the day, the baby was legally mine. And I hadn't even picked out her name. That night, I sat with her on the couch, holding her in my lap. Do you know who you are? I whispered. You're ours. You're the reason we're going to learn how to be better. You don't even know it yet, but you've already survived so much. I texted Trevor again. If she contacts you, tell her Merrin is safe. Tell her she's loved, but she needs to come back soon. The name felt right. Merrin Grace. Merrin for Mom. Grace for the only thing holding us all together. 2 days passed, then 3, then 5. No word. And then on day 7, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Is this Eliza Merrin? The voice asked. Yes. This is Nicole. I'm a nurse at Willow Haven Behavioral Center. Samantha Merrin checked in 5 days ago. She listed you as her emergency contact. I sat down hard. She's okay, I asked, my voice cracking. She's exhausted, but she's safe. She's receiving treatment voluntarily. She said she'll sign anything you need as long as you're caring for the baby. I exhaled, my body sinking into the chair like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She hadn't abandoned her, not fully, not forever. She was saving herself. That night, I rocked Merrin in my arms and looked up at the ceiling through glassy eyes. Your mom is coming back, I whispered, but until she does, you have me. And in that moment, something shifted in my chest. I wasn't just standing in for someone else's life anymore. This was mine too. My mother's voice on the tape changed everything. A week after Sam checked into Willow Haven, I got a package in the mail. No return address. It was wrapped in plain brown paper, just my name written on the front, no postage stamp, no sender, hand-delivered. Inside, a padded pouch. And inside that, a small silver MP3 recorder. It was old, the kind Mom used to carry around when she'd talk out grocery lists or story ideas before her mind started slipping. I stared at it for a long time, just seeing it made my chest tighten. Then I pressed play. There was a long pause, some static, and then her voice. Hi baby, she said. My hands flew to my mouth. It wasn't a voicemail, not one I'd saved or forgot. It was new to me. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted. I'm sorry about that. I wanted more time, but you know how life is, messy, unfair, unfinished. I clutched the recorder like it was sacred. I know what Sam did, and I know you're angry. She didn't ask because she knew I wouldn't give her permission. She wanted a shortcut to hope, and I didn't want to be the one who told her no. The silence in the room became something alive. I told her I wouldn't help, but I didn't report it. I didn't stop her. I didn't protect the trust the way I should have. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would all work out. I was tired, Eliza, tired of being the only grown-up in the room, and I think I expected you to clean it up. I'm sorry for that, truly. I couldn't move. I didn't say goodbye the way you deserved. I didn't prepare either of you for what grief would turn you into. I just hope that somewhere in this mess you can find each other again, because she's your sister, and she needs you more than she'll ever say out loud. I pressed pause, my throat ached. For a second, I was 7 again, sitting at the foot of Mom's bed while she braided my hair and hummed Patsy Cline through the silence. This recording wasn't about forgiveness. It was about responsibility, about 2 women sisters who were trying to rewrite something too broken to patch. I sent a copy to Renee. She told me to archive it, that it could be useful in future court hearings. But to me, it wasn't evidence. It was permission to let go of the black and white view of what Sam did and start seeing the truth for what it was, deeply gray. That night, I drove out to the cemetery. I hadn't been there in months. The grass had grown wild around the edges. The stone was cool beneath my hand. I sat beside Mom's headstone and played the recording again. "I'm trying," I whispered. "I'm really trying." When I got home, Merrin was still sleeping. She made a little sound, half hiccup, half sigh, and I laid down beside her crib on the floor with a pillow and a blanket, just listening. The next morning, I made a decision. I wouldn't file for sole custody, not unless Sam stayed gone. I'd wait, give her space to come back on her own. I wanted Merrin to have two mothers who weren't at war. I called Willow Haven and asked if I could be added to Sam's visitor list. They said yes. The following Sunday, I made the 3-hour drive. Willow Haven was quiet, bright, peaceful in a way hospitals rarely are. They brought Sam into the visitor courtyard slowly. She looked different, tired, yes, but clearer somehow, like her shame had peeled off and left only skin. She smiled when she saw me. "Hi," she whispered. I handed her a photo, Merrin in her new crib wearing a sunflower onesie. "She's getting so big," Sam said, eyes filling. "She misses you," I replied. "I miss her too." We sat quietly for a while. I handed her the MP3 player. She held it like it might burn her. "She recorded that." "She did." Sam wiped her face. She always knew how to say goodbye before we were ready. I nodded. "You're not done, Sam. You still have time." "I want to come back," she said, "but not like this, not sick, not scared. I want to be steady." "Then you take your time," I said, "but know this, she's safe, she's loved, and she knows who her mother is." Sam looked up. "Mothers, plural." I smiled. "Yes, mothers." For the first time, she smiled back. There was hope in it. Not bright, not perfect, but real. When CPS showed up at her door, she blamed me. The house felt too quiet without Sam. I'd gotten used to the echo of her voice bouncing from room to room during my visits, the way she'd narrate the baby's every burp like it was a headline. Now it was just me and Merrin, and the soft lull of the baby monitor, and the silence of a nursery holding more than one woman's unfinished story. I thought we were in the clear, that CPS had filed their last note, that Sam's voluntary inpatient status had spoken loud enough for all of us. I was wrong. Because a week later, the doorbell rang again. This time, I recognized the woman before she even said her name. Same clipboard, same blazer, same firm but polite tone. "Ms. Merrin," she said, "we've received an updated anonymous complaint, this time regarding your guardianship status." My breath caught. "I'm sorry. There's an allegation that you, while acting as co-guardian, enabled and protected illegal actions committed by the child's birth mother, namely, financial fraud and intentional concealment of biological origin." My knees nearly gave out. It wasn't about Sam anymore. It was about me. And someone who had all the right information, was now trying to make me look unfit. "I'd like to come in," the caseworker said. I opened the door. Let her inspect everything? Merrin was napping, the nursery was clean, her bottles were sterilized, her clothes were folded in drawers, her name Merrin Grace stitched on a blanket hanging from the crib rail. She was safe. And I was steady. But that didn't matter to a system built to be cautious. "We'll be conducting a joint review of both guardianship agreements. Your declaration is strong, but the anonymous report referenced timing inconsistencies, which means we'll need to reassess with a supervisor. Expect contact within 10 business days." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked the one question that burned beneath my ribs. Was the report from the same person? "I'm not allowed to say," she said, "but it was detailed." Too detailed. Only 2 people had access to those timelines, me and Trevor. That night, after Merrin was asleep, I opened my laptop and reviewed every single file Trevor had touched while he worked under me. Every edit. Every export. Every upload. There it was. A cloud file, private, encrypted, shared with a masked Gmail account just 2 days after his resignation. He'd backed up the audit logs. The forgeries. The payment discrepancies. All of it. Trevor hadn't just resigned. He'd covered himself. and then used the system to try and erase Sam from Merrin's life, and now me too. It wasn't about protection anymore, it was about control. I sent the evidence to Renee. She called me before I could even sit down. "This is retaliation," she said, "and it's not going to work. I'll submit a protective filing in the morning and request a closed hearing with a family court judge." "What about CPS?" "They're overreaching now," she said. "The child is safe, the guardianship is legal, but we'll need to bring Sam into this. It'll look stronger coming from both mothers." My heart ached. Sam was still recovering. She hadn't held Merrin in almost a month. But I knew Renee was right. And so I made the call. I drove to Willow Haven the next day and waited as Sam was brought out into the sunny courtyard. Her hair was pulled back, she wore soft blue, and when she saw me she smiled, but warily. "I need you," I said, "not for me, for her." I told her everything. Trevor's file backup. The new CPS report. The quiet attempt to undermine both of us in one move. Sam's face darkened, not with anger but with clarity. "He never told me he left the files," she said. "He just said he needed to protect Merrin. By reporting the people who are raising her. I think," she whispered, "he thought we'd fail, that you fail." I shook my head. "We haven't, not even close." She reached for my hand. "Then let's show them." That week, Sam signed a joint affidavit reaffirming my custodial role, acknowledging her past actions, and supporting continued guardianship split. She offered to undergo extended psychological evaluation voluntarily. CPS backed off. Renee's motion went through. The judge called our file one of the most transparently honest co-parenting submissions she'd seen all year. Sam was granted supervised visitation upon discharge. And Merrin. She started giggling for the first time. A bubbling, high-pitched laugh that broke through the tension like sunlight through a cracked door. That laugh, God, that laugh reminded me why we fought, why we kept showing up. Sam came home 2 weeks later. Not as a villain. Not as a victim. As a mother. And I welcomed her not as the sister who ruined everything, but as the woman who finally said, "Let's rebuild it right." The night Sam disappeared and left only a note. There's something terrifying about peace. About stillness. After everything we'd survived, deception, fraud, betrayal, legal firestorms, I didn't know how to relax into normal. Sam had been home for 2 weeks. Not back to normal, not fully healed, but she was present, she showed up. We took turns feeding, rocking, talking through nighttime cries. We even started laughing again, those cautious, hesitant chuckles that sound more like muscle memory than joy. Merrin cooed, smiled, started holding her bottle without help. For the first time in months, our little house didn't feel like a battlefield. And then, she was gone. Again. It was a Thursday. I came home from work a little later than usual. Trevor had finally responded to one of my emails about closing the audit trail on his system access, and I stayed late reviewing logs. The house was quiet. Merrin's blanket was missing, so was her diaper bag. No note. No text. No Sam. At first I told myself they'd gone for a walk, but it was dark. Sam hated walking after dusk. She said it reminded her of Mom's final hospice nights. I texted, called, nothing. By hour 2 I was packing. By hour 3 I called the local hospital, then the police. No accident reports, no ER admissions. It was 11:42 p.m. when my phone buzzed with a single text. "I'm sorry, I couldn't breathe, we're safe, please don't call anyone yet, I just needed to think." No location. No answer to my follow-up messages. Just radio silence. I sat by Merrin's empty crib, blanket in my lap, wondering if trust, true, durable trust, could survive a second disappearance. I told myself she'd come back. I told myself I didn't need to spiral. But trauma doesn't follow logic. And I couldn't stop replaying the first time she left. The broken note, the empty nursery, the police report half-written. This time I waited. I didn't call CPS, I didn't call Renee. But I did call Trevor. He picked up on the first ring. "I know," he said, "she texted me too. You know where she is." No, but I think she's trying to figure out if she still belongs in any of this, in motherhood in us. She's Merrin's mother, Trevor, she belongs. I know that, but Sam does. I hated that he was right. For Sam, shame was a boulder chained to her ankle. Even when we forgave her, she couldn't forgive herself. So she ran. Again. 3 hours later, just before dawn, the front door creaked open. I stepped into the hall. Sam was standing there, barefoot, holding Merrin against her shoulder. She looked like a ghost that remembered how to breathe. I didn't mean to scare you, she whispered. I needed to remind myself what it felt like to hold her without wondering if I deserved it. I stepped forward and took Merrin gently from her arms. She missed you, I said. I didn't go far, she added quickly. Just to the dunes, the beach. Mom used to take us there, remember? I nodded, I remember. She sank onto the floor. You should lock me out for good this time. Why? Because I keep breaking the peace, and you keep cleaning it up. I sat beside her. You're not a wrecking ball, Sam, you're just scared, and scared doesn't mean unworthy, it just means human. She looked at me with eyes full of regret. I want to be stable for her, for me, for you. Then stay, I said, that's all you have to do, stay. She reached for my hand. I'm not going anywhere again, not without you knowing, not ever. And for the first time, I believed her. Because her fear wasn't leading anymore. It was listening. Forgiveness has terms, and I finally set mines. Merrin turned 6 months old the same day the final court review closed. It was symbolic in a way I hadn't anticipated. The judge signed off on our permanent co-guardianship. Our declaration stood, our therapy records reviewed, our parenting plan approved. No more weekly reviews, no more unannounced home visits, no more walking on legal glass. The court considered us stable. On paper we were whole. But in my heart something still felt unfinished. Because forgiveness isn't a verdict. It's a choice you have to make again and again. Especially when the scars still itch. We had a small party for Merrin that weekend. Just us, a few neighbors, and Trevor quietly sitting on the edge of the couch, holding a toy in one hand and his apology in the other. He pulled me aside before cake. Thank you for letting me be here, he said. You never needed permission, I replied. He hesitated. I filed those reports, you know that, right? I do. I thought I was protecting her, but I was just trying to rewrite the guilt I didn't want to carry. I know that too. He looked down. Sam doesn't know, not fully. She doesn't need to, I said. She's finally finding peace, don't rip that out from under her. He looked at Merrin across the room. Sam was holding her, rocking gently, smiling for once without apology. She's got the best of both of you, he said quietly. I smiled. She's got the best of all of us, but she'll get the truth one day. The real one, not the courtroom version, the version that includes everyone's mistakes and how we fixed them. After the party, I stood in the nursery with Sam. Merrin was asleep, hand curled beside her face, cheeks rosy from too much attention. She's beautiful, Sam said. She's not afraid of anything. She gets that from you, I replied. Sam shook her head. She gets her strength from you. I don't know how you forgave me after everything. I didn't, I said, not at first and not all at once. She looked at me startled. Forgiveness, I continued, isn't free. It has terms. It means you don't get to lie to me again. It means when you feel like running, you talk. It means you stop measuring your worth by how much damage you caused. Sam's lip trembled. Okay. And it means, I added, we never ever forget what we did wrong, because that's how we remember what we rebuilt. She nodded, blinking back tears. Then I accept the terms. We hugged for a long time. No drama, no music swelling. Just two sisters who'd finally found their way back to something they never knew how much they'd lost. The next morning, Sam woke up early and made pancakes. I fed Merrin while she danced barefoot in the kitchen, syrup on her cheek, humming some lullaby she made up on the spot. It was imperfect. Messy. Beautiful. Ours. And when Merrin took her first steps a few weeks later, it was in the middle of the living room between us. One wobbly foot forward, then another. She walked toward the space where both our hands were outstretched. Right down the center. where forgiveness lives, where family begins again, where everything broken learns how to hold together.